God, we come to you in this hour asking for your blessing and help as we are gathered together. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with knowledge and wisdom. Help us to work together and encourage each other to do the best we can. We ask that you encourage all of us to reach higher and farther to meet the challenges put before us. Now, I have a prayer that's a little bit late. It's for the National Vietnam War Veterans Day, even though it's past. But I wrote this prayer, and I'd like to say it tonight also. If Sam gives me a minute more. Okay. Lord, can't read my writing. Last March 29th was National Vietnam War Veterans Day, and I wrote this prayer especially for you veterans, for your Vietnam veterans. Lord, we need your blessings for all those survivors of this tragic war. We ask that you bless each and every soldier that stepped on the soil of Vietnam. We pray that you have already welcomed those that gave their lives. We ask for strength to those that are suffering from the effects of war, that the war has on our brave warriors. We humbly ask for your blessings for those soldiers that are still there, and if at all possible, have them return to their families. Comfort all those that lost loved ones and watch over all those that are still here with us. Lord, this war was a war between political leaders. They tied our brave soldiers' hands. We know you gave strength to our young men that they could have easily been the victors, but were blocked by the many government officials. We know this war could have been over in a short time if we were allowed to fight with all our strength. Lord, I point this out only to have you go into the hearts of those in our government to remember this war and to never have this happen again. Lord, we know that sometimes war is inevitable. Even as we read it in your Bible, there were wars, many wars, but the outcome was a victorious victory for your choices. We ask that in a time when war is conceivable, you give our generals and fighting boys all the might we have to have victory for this great nation under God. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Linda. That was beautiful. Welcome, folks. We're pleased that you were able to make it this evening. It shows us that you want to have a say in your government and you want to be an informed voter on Election Day. Thank you very much for that. Now, we have a full agenda, so we're going to try to push through this rather quickly. You hear a lot of talk about the Second Amendment and gun control, which we will be talking about in detail in a couple months. For now, I want to tell you that there is a Second Amendment bus trip rally in Harrisburg on Monday, April 30th. The cost is $26. Now, there are many groups participating and support that our members join in as well. The bus will take you right to the Capitol steps, so there's very little walking. Also, it's indoors, so weather will not be an issue. Now, last month, I told you that Democrat Senator Fontana was a sponsor of a bill that was going to take away from us law-abiding citizens over 150 gun models. Well, I have that bill with me tonight. I read that bill. It certainly does take away many, many guns, but also there's a lot more to that bill. There's hoops that you have to jump through. It is a disastrous bill. It's probably the strongest anti-Second Amendment bill in the nation. It must be defeated, and we're going to need your help. SB 17, thank you very much. Now, there's also anti-Second Amendment bills in the House, which we are also following, and I will get that information to you at a later time. Folks, please remember, without the Second Amendment, there will not be a First Amendment. The Second Amendment is like an insurance policy. It protects all our rights. Just look throughout history. Look at other nations, what happened when they had their guns taken away or did not have guns. So, folks, we need your help. We need your support. We want you to join us on the bus trip. Ray, where's Ray? Ray's in, okay, turn around. I see Ray's on your left side. He's in charge of the bus trip. He has a sign-up sheet. Please, see him. He'll make arrangements. It says only $26. This is sort of a side note. Folks, there's always a public outcry when there's a school shooting, as it should be. Unfortunately, these shootings are not going to end because we don't do anything different. The only thing you hear when one of these occur is that gun control, gun control, gun control. Well, that hasn't worked. And unless changes are made, that will continue, unfortunately. Now, there are many things we could do to save innocent lives. Let me give you something to think about. Maybe we should pass legislation for it to be a crime for a teenager that has a driver's license to be in possession of a cell phone. A crime for a teenager who has a driver's license to be in possession of a cell phone. And folks, you're going to be here about 2 hours tonight. In that period of time, one teenager is going to lose their life because they were texting while driving. That's 11 a day. That in 2 days, that is 22. 22 is greater than the 17 students that were killed, murdered in Florida. Where's the public outcry with that? That's over 4,000 a year. Where's the public outcry? You don't hear it. There's many ways we could save lives we want to. We just do not do it. I'm going to make a very bold statement. I want to tell you that the Obama administration policies were at least partially responsible for the 17 children that died in Florida on Valentine's Day. Hear, hear. And unfortunately, our tax dollars contributed to that as well. And look, folks, I'm not a loony, I'm not a kook by saying this, and I will be able to back that up at a later meeting. Okay, switching gears. Our good friend, Representative Mark Gillen, asked that we announce that there is the annual NRA fundraising banquet Friday, May 18, 2018 at the Crown Plaza in Wyomissing. Cost is $55 per person. See Linda in the back, she has a sign-up sheet. Now, if you can also sign up online. If you do, let Linda know. That way, if you want to sit with us, we can make arrangements to all sit together. Folks, the NRA is being attacked. We are being attacked. The NRA is fighting back. We need to fight back. So please join us. Let's see, I think that's it for me. Wow, for about a while. Carol. Yeah. Carol Gardecki will do her Constitution Minute. Two at the most.
I did not talk to Sam before this meeting. I did not know what he was going to talk about. I too have chosen to talk about the Second Amendment. I'm scared. People are after our Second Amendment rights. And since the school shooting, it looks like the kids are trying to take away our Second Amendment rights. I don't think that's true. I think the kids don't know any better. We all know they're not getting a good constitutional education in school. Somebody in the background is getting them all revved up. They don't have the money to go nationwide and organize. They don't. Somebody else is doing this. So don't be fooled. Pay attention. When you hear stores that are not going to sell rifles, or they're not going to sell rifles to people under 21, I decide that I'm not going to spend money there anymore. Pay attention. Pay attention. Okay, as for the kids, I think the best thing I can say is in the words of Jesus. God forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they do. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, this is a little out of order, I think. Ray, you're up next. Ray, you should be up here, unless Helen wants to come up and replace. Okay? Yeah, come on, Helen. You're here. Let's go. We'll save 30 seconds. Okay? Just remember, no more. No more.
My fellow Patriots. This one? Okay. No! Stop it. My fellow Patriots, thank you for being here tonight. As Patriots, we know our Declaration of Independence states that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that our founders based these rights on the law of nature and nature's God. These are rights that are given to us by God, not government. I want to point out that the Declaration of Independence specifically states that we are created, not born, with these inalienable rights. And the first of these inalienable rights is the right to life. Government never had the right to take this God-given right away from the 60+ million babies, unborn lives, that have been lost since the infamously bad decision of SCOTUS in Roe versus Wade. The latest statistics, and I got the information just about a month ago, that over 1,000 babies are murdered each year at the Reading Planned Parenthood. These babies should not be forgotten. And we have an obligation to bring awareness to this Holocaust in our own community. Therefore, I am asking you as Patriots to stand with us on Sunday, April 29th, as we publicly declare that
Testing.
was the devil. Therefore, as we publicly declare that all life is sacred, from conception to natural death. The event will be held at Berks Catholic High School, and this year we will be having an expo that starts at noon with over 15 national and state pro-life organizations manning tables to provide info on how we can become active year-round in an effort to thwart this intrinsic evil of abortion. We will also be having games for the children, and at 2 o'clock we will be entering into the auditorium of Berks Catholic High School for a rally. We will be having two very well-known pro-life speakers at this rally. After the rally at 3 o'clock, we'll be marching from Berks Catholic across the Penn Street Bridge, and we will be stopping at Planned Parenthood for prayer with numerous pastors from different churches. Following the prayer at Planned Parenthood, we will have buses provided for all of you
to transport you back to Berks Catholic High School. So right now, I am going to have a couple of my dutiful friends handing out the flyer. And if you would raise your hand, we can hand the flyer out to you. And I'm asking you now, with about a week and a half left, please consider coming, make plans to come, and please pass the word to your friends and family. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Folks, please join us with Helen. Ray's up next. He will talk to you about our letter writing project and a couple different issues that we're working on.
All right, this month's letter writing project is to ask our state representative to vote no on all proposed gun legislation being introduced as the liberal anti-gun establishment representatives pander to their base, trying to convince the public banning so-called assault weapons and their accessories will stop delusional lunatics from committing horrific mass murders. Murderers who use assault-type weapons make up a statistical insignificant percentage of all law-abiding citizens who own these type of weapons for their own personal, legitimate, and perfectly legal reasons. No law will stop a lunatic who is committed to raise havoc without regard to consequences. Our letter writer reminds our state representative the role of government is not to punish or restrict the rights of law-abiding citizens on a theoretically based notion a crime may be committed by some irrational madman. In addition to our letter writing campaign, the Berks County Patriots formally opposed SB 17, a bill that would totally ban assault weapons, which I can't describe, in Pennsylvania now being reviewed by the Senate Judiciary Committee. BC's Board of Directors will be sending or hand-delivering a letter to each member of the Judiciary Committee imploring them to vote no and to kill the bill in committee. Thank you for all who have signed up for our letter writing project. You can do your part by going back to Larry and Ray's table to sign your personalized letter. The rest of you can do your part by signing up for the BCP sponsored 30. We need 30 to go on the April bus trip to Harrisburg to protest all anti-gun legislation being considered. Now, we got about 7 people signed up for the bus, but we got a 30-seat bus, so we'd like to get some more people signed up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Folks, the Second Amendment is really a crucial issue. And we need to have representation in Harrisburg. We have a lot of other groups going, so we should not have a problem getting 30 people to fill up that bus. So please see Ray. Up next, Linda. This is an issue very near and dear to Linda's heart.
First of all, there's surveys on the seats. We'd like to have you fill them out and hand them in tonight yet. So when you have a spare minute, fill them out and put them on my back table if you want. Okay. I'll start my speech now. Greetings, folks. We're going to have a little fun next month. We purchased space in a yearly merchandiser cookbook, and along with our ad, we're able to submit a recipe from one of you. So, please hand in your favorite recipe. Here's a recipe, so we have to do it the only other fair way. All recipes will be put into a hat, and 3 recipes will be drawn. All 3 recipes will be put on our website. website. And I can tell you, I for one will try all 3 of them because I love new recipes. Then we'll put these 3 recipes back into the hat and draw the winning recipe. That recipe will be put into the merchandiser cookbook with your name as Berks County Patriot member. The cookbook will be distributed to 10,000 homes. And if everyone is like me, I keep my cookbooks, and every now and then I page through them looking for something interesting to try. So the cookbooks will be around for a while. Berks County Patriots get their name out there, and your recipe will become well known. Just make sure you have all the ingredients and the oven temperatures and everything in. So please get your recipes to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, folks, you are at the Berks County Patriots, and we're talking about a food recipe. Isn't that something? Wow, I never thought I'd see the day. What about you, Rod? However, folks, this is really advertising. We're going to get our name out, as Linda said, to over 10,000 homes, and they do keep that. Actually, I wanted to put a recipe in, but board members are not allowed. So maybe I'll share it with you sometime. It's called Chicken Maximilian. Okay, folks, before I turn this over to Bonnie, which I know she's getting ready, I want to take a minute to acknowledge the Tri-County Tea Party Coalition. They've been working on the 2018 election since last June. You cannot imagine all the work that they did and how helpful they've been. So I'd like to have each of them stand. I see Tom over here, please stand. Come on. Tom Campione is chairman of the Lehigh Valley Tea Party. Stay standing, Tom. Ron Bowles is around here someplace. Where's Ron? Ron Bowles is in the back. Ron is the president of Pennsylvania Liberty Alliance. We also have Jim Rodkey. Where's Jim? Jim? There. Jim is all the way back as well. Jim Rodkey is chairman of the Lehigh Valley Tea Party. His beautiful wife is here as well. Sirs, take a stand wherever you are. Okay. Hey, oh, here. Good. And I cannot forget my wife, Linda. Folks, let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you. Now, folks, before I turn the mic over to Bonnie, and I know she's very, very anxious to get this mic, I want to give Bonnie and Rod a big thank you. There's a lot of things I can tell you they did in these last 3 months, actually last 3 meetings. It's unbelievable. I think she might tell you. So rather than me take some of her thunder, the only thing I will tell you, herding cats probably would have been easier, okay? So folks, let's give Bonnie and Rod Miller, our legislative chairman, a big round of applause for all the work they did this last 3 months in particular. Oh, by the way, Bonnie is the past chair of the Berks GOP, and we're very thankful that she was able to pitch in and help us, and she did it in a nonpartisan way. Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, it's great to see so many people in attendance, and all the candidates that we have showed up. We invited, and this is in alphabetical order, all the Democrats, Libertarians, and Republicans that were on the primary ballot this May. So thank you for those that could show up. Others, of course, had commitments and couldn't make it, but we're certainly glad for those that came. Now, we had a really good petition signing event last month. Lots of people here, lots of candidates, and we thought, oh, that's going to really make this event easy. No, then we had redistricting. So that gave a lot of the candidates a migraine headache, to say the least. So, and I just don't want to miss any, the 16th, the 15th, the 9th, the 7th, the 6th, and the 4th districts were all fooled with. So we now had to change, well, the candidates had to get new petitions signed. A lot of them weren't good anymore. So it really did cause headaches for everybody. But And I'm not even going to say all, all it took us to get. So Rod, Sam, and I did a lot more than I thought when I volunteered for this position. I thought a couple phone calls, a few internet searches, and that'll be it. No, that wasn't quite it. But we made it, and I believe we invited everybody that's on the primary ballot, and if we did miss anyone, I'm certainly sorry about that. But this is going to be very short. I really don't need to say anything else as far as I'm concerned. We don't need to blow our own horns up here. But I do want to remind all of you here that voting in the primary, as you know, is very important. But also, giving your time, putting up signs, handing out literature for your favorite candidate, even maybe going door to door, or donating money if that's possible. So be sure you support your favorite candidate, whatever way possible, and talk to your friends and your neighbors. We really want to get out, great vote this time. And once again, thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. Linda, were we supposed to make an announcement regarding voter registration? Linda? Anywhere? Okay, we'll put that aside for now. Up next, folks, is the man of the hour. As I said, Bonnie and him really have spent a lot of time the last 3 months. And I have a suggestion for you, Rod. I would suggest that next week, you and Ann maybe take a 2-week vacation. Maybe pick a place like Georgia. What do you think about that? Folks, let's welcome the Berks County Patriots Legislative Chairman, Ron Miller. Sorry, folks, I made an error. Unfortunately, the legislative chairman reminded me when I acknowledged the Tri-County folks, I forgot to acknowledge our legislative chairman, Rod Miller. So let's give him a separate round of applause.
Okay. Good evening, Patriots. I guess in the words of Ed Sullivan, if anybody's watching that Decade channel, which I'm going to, in the words of Ed Sullivan, we got a great show tonight. So, I would say if we get it all in under 2 hours, we're lucky, but we're going to try. And I too want to thank Bonnie for the effort she put forth to help pull this together. If you think about it, how the Supreme Court is stepping over their authority, gerrymandered the congressional districts that were already gerrymandered, and it was all over. Candidates put petitions together for districts they weren't even part of. So we had the same problem, as Bonnie told you, that we never know who was in which district until the last minute, so we could get phone calls and emails out to find out who is and who isn't going to attend tonight, and decided they're going to run. There are candidates who are running for one district.
Rod, get here.
Rod, hold on.
Is this on? Yeah. Okay. How about if I point back to, we got it. Thank you. So, the Supreme Court, as I said, in a split vote, 5-2, decided they'll do the gerrymandering. Interesting enough, the 5 that said they will were the Democrats, and the 2 that said they won't are the Republicans in the Supreme Court. So for anybody who thinks the courts are apolitical, I got a bridge to sell you. Okay, here's where we are. And we initially invited any candidate that was going to be running in the primary or the October general, invited them to attend tonight and let them know that if they have no opponent, their time will come in October. It'll be October for us. That's when they'll be able to speak here. I stand correct. You're right. they'll be elected or unelected in November, but in October, those people without candidates will have the opportunity to debate their opponent on the other party after the dust settles and they find out who in their party is a survivor after this May election. So, what I'd like now, all of the candidates that came tonight without an opponent in the primary, please come forward to allow us to find out who you are. You get a minute or so to introduce yourself, and you'll get certainly a lot of time come the October meeting. So, and I think at the last minute I got a couple that said they'll also be here, Ryan McKenzie for one, and all the other candidates, which would include the Libertarian candidate running for governor, Ken Krawchuk. Will include Vince Gagliaro. I didn't realize he was going to be here. He is also without an opponent, but if he's here, we'll get him to speak. Gregory Macaulay. Macaulay, interesting enough, he beat his opponent and didn't have to say a thing. His opponent would have been Representative Costello, but Costello decided that he wouldn't go at it one more time. So with that in mind, let's call them up here one at a time and ran through the selection. Is Ken here first? Where's Ken? Here's the second mic here.
Is this taken for anything? I need to lean against something.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight. Patriots are always needed in this country. My name is Ken Krawchuk. I am the Libertarian Party candidate for governor. We Libertarians are different from the two old parties because we are the party of principle. Every law we support, every law we oppose can be traced back to one central idea. The idea that your life is yours, that your property is yours. You have the God-given, inalienable right to live your life your way without interference, provided only you respect the rights and property of others. It's a golden rule on a political level. How many of you believe you have the right to live your life your way as long as you respect the rights and property of others? Look at that. We're all libertarian. Maybe in November you'll think about voting that way. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for what you're all doing. Thank you very much.
Okay, we got two of them. All right, where's Ryan?
Rob, we don't have time to answer your question.
Not for the non-opposed. There's too much other stuff taking place here. Where's Ryan McKenzie?
Right. She's got an opponent.
Okay, well, he's coming up here. Vincent, he's here, right? Here we go.
Thank you. I only learned about the Patriot Society a few weeks ago when my campaign manager told me about it. I've never heard of the organization before. So since I've learned about it, I decided to come up, find out what you all are about. I am a gun carrier, by the way. I do have a license to carry, and I'm all for the Second Amendment. Thank you. I am a former city councilman with the city of Reading. I served on that for 4 years. Learned that the part-time position is not quite for me holding down a full-time job. I don't know how most of the people do it with a holding a job, so it wasn't for me, so I didn't run again for city council. I wanted to have something bigger in mind, something legislative with Pennsylvania. I want to be able to make sure the people of Pennsylvania get what they need to fairly, across the whole state, do everything. Property taxes are a big issue with me. Yes, I would like to eliminate them. No, I can't do it by myself. But we're going to work with the other legislatures. You know, I haven't spoken with anybody. This is my first time speaking in front of a group in a long, long time. If we were doing DJ work, I could do that. I'm formerly a DJ. So anyway, with the property tax, I'd like to do away with the property tax and work towards more of a sales tax to make it fair for everyone. Hopefully, in November, you look at me and push my button down there, and I'll have more to say later on as soon as I get used to talking in front of people a little more. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I want to cut these speakers off. I have no opponent, but we got a lot of people tonight with opponents. We got to get them in. So, with that in mind, where's Ryan? Okay. Ryan McKenzie was a rep for Munson County, but the gerrymandering Supreme Court decided we're going to take him out of our county and put him up there in Lehigh, but we'll let him get a minute to do here anyway.
Great. Well, thank you, Rod, and good evening, Patriots. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I always love coming before this group and have done it a number of times in the past. I do have an opponent in the primary, and here in Berks County, I represent the portions including Hereford, Long Swamp, Richmond, Rockland, and Topton. And so in the state legislature, we've had a very fierce challenge with Governor Wolf. He is the most liberal governor in the entire country. And all of us, Republicans, Jim Christiana, who you're going to hear from, the other Republican representatives here in Berks County, we have been consistently pushing back on his plans to raise taxes and take away the rights of us hardworking Pennsylvanians. So we've been doing that. We've been pushing him back, holding him at bay, and I'm proud to say I'm a part of that team that's working against him. On other issues, I'm strongly pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, and also in favor of property tax elimination. So we're going to continue to push those items in the state legislature, and I do want to thank you for all of your time and opportunity again to speak here. I'll be in the back if anybody has any more questions. I don't want to hold you up this evening. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the night.
Okay, one to go.
I want to thank you for having me tonight. My name is Greg McCauley, and I'm running for Congress in the 6th District, which is Reading and South. My name is Greg McCauley, and I'm running for Congress in the 6th District.
Stand here.
Wait a minute.
Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing.
So, I'm a conservative, I'm a practicing Catholic, and I'm pro-life. Let me repeat that, I'm pro-life.
Testing, testing. Testing, testing.
I support the Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment, and I've been a member of the NRA for many, many years. I love to hunt and skeet shoot with my boys.
Testing, testing, testing. Yeah, try this. For some reason it's working. Is that working? Yeah. Okay, okay.
Everybody asks why I would want to run for Congress when I have a beautiful wife and a great job. It's because everything in Washington is dysfunctional. Look at Washington. Everything's a crisis. There's a debt ceiling crisis. There's a budget crisis. There's an immigration crisis, and there's an opioid crisis. And worst of all, there's another one, a student loan crisis. I have simple solutions for these problems because I've been working on budgets for 35 years. Let's look at immigration really quickly. There are 20 to 30 million illegal people living here and working amongst us every day. I have a plan for them. My plan is to issue work permits so that we can charge them a flat. This is not a path to citizenship. This is not amnesty. This is a plan to have them pay tax just like you and me. If those 20 to 30 million people pay their fair share, we'll add $150 billion to our budget. So, I have a plan. And those voters, red for Republican, white for independents, and blue for Democrats, are going to be voting for me this November. I want you to join me. Red, white, and blue. And let's solve some of these problems in Washington, like the student loan crisis. I have a plan for it. We're going to take that 11% loan that our children and grandchildren are paying, and we're going to move it into the government at 2%. And we're going to give them back the American dream. So, everybody, come out and vote red, white, and blue for the Republicans this year. Thank you.
Testing.
Okay, did I have all the candidates without an opponent speak that are here this evening? Okay, that being the case, we now have a candidate who has an opponent that is not here this evening. Therefore, I would like to right now, up to the mic, our U.S. Senate candidate on the Republican Party, James Cristiano. Now, Mr. Cristiano, we're giving him 10 minutes, and he can decide with those 10 minutes if he wants to use them all and speak, or if he wants to hold some Q&A time. That's his prerogative. But our flag man will let us know when we hit the 9 minute, and then the red flag for the 10 minutes. So you can see it yourself. Here you go.
Thank you, Rod. And so I can spend the 10 minutes, just don't blow it, right? I can spend it multiple ways. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Sam, thank you. Bonnie, thank you very much for letting me be here tonight. And it's no secret that the Berks County Patriots take their responsibility very seriously. And while some candidates choose not to be here, I don't know where else in the world, other than at home with my 2-year-old son and my wife, I would want to be rather than right here with all of you to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm running for the United States Senate. And to be honest, it's pretty simple. And to put it bluntly, under Republican control in Washington, they're jacking up the deficit again to $1 trillion. Tacking that deficit onto the $20 trillion debt that we have. 1/6 of our economy is intertwined in the healthcare industry, and it's a mess. Social Security is on a bullet train to bankruptcy. Within 10 years, Social Security is going to be insolvent. Americans have $1.4 trillion in student loans, and as we just heard, they're paying 8, 9, 10% interest on those loans because the Obama administration nationalized the student loan industry. To think that we give the Republicans an opportunity to be in control of the House and the Senate, and then they turn around and they pass an omnibus spending bill that awards $500 million to Planned Parenthood, fully funds sanctuary cities, is a fireable offense. It's a fireable offense, and what are we going to do about it? Well, to be honest with you, in this election for the United States Senate primary, you have 2 choices. One of the candidates, myself, I would have voted against that bill without a shadow of a doubt, especially when you consider the fact that the leadership in Washington dumped that bill on rank and file's desk, a 2,200-page document, 48 hours before the government shuts down. That's poor leadership, and if that's the leadership that I have to work for, you can rest assured I'd be voting, my first vote in Washington will be to elect some new legislative leaders. Because it's unacceptable that Republicans would dump a $1.4 trillion spending package that we can't pay for, that our kids and our grandkids are going to have to pay for, and expect to get elected. And the other candidate in this race, Congressman Lou Barletta, he voted for the spending bill. He voted for the spending bill, and in my opinion, he's been given an opportunity like Bob Casey. Combined, Bob Casey and Lou Barletta have had 20 years to solve those problems in Washington. And the unfortunate reality is they haven't made a lot of progress, if any. In fact, they've made it worse. And so what are we going to do about it? Well, we can either give them another opportunity to change their stripes, or we can elect someone different. We can take an unconventional approach, and we can send somebody to Washington to clean up the mess. And yes, all those issues are complex, and they're complicated, but they're not rocket science. It does not take a rocket scientist or a mathematician to balance a budget. And we don't need a balanced budget amendment. I would happily vote for a balanced budget amendment, but the reality is they could still do their job and balance the budget. And so I'm asking you to join with me so that we can start to fix them, so these problems won't be inherited by our kids and our grandkids. Whoever replaces Washington's old guard is going to have to fix a mess. We know that. But I'd rather start fixing it now. I don't think we can wait 6 years. I think it's going to be really hard to beat Bob Casey this year, but I think we can do it with a candidate that's a clear contrast. And so why should you trust me? You've heard a lot of slick politicians telling you that they're going to solve all the world's problems, and they turn around, they go to Washington, and they do the exact opposite. They make them worse. Well, words will not convince you that I'm any different than them, but my record will. For the last 10 years, I've gotten to serve in the State House of Representatives. I had a term limit pledge from the beginning. I honored that term limit pledge. I said I wouldn't serve more than 10 years. And it created this sense of urgency in me to deliver the results that my constituents elected me to do. I haven't wasted my opportunity. And if you look at my legislation, you will see that my legislation has given a school choice option to parents that they didn't have before my legislation got signed into law. That school choice legislation has saved 100,000 kids from Pennsylvania's failing, most violent schools by giving parents an option, not by throwing more money at the problem. My legislation has shepherded in the largest capital investment in Pennsylvania since World War II. There is a $6 billion plant being built in western Pennsylvania in my district that is a petrochemical plant. 10,000 people are working on that site because we passed responsible pro-growth public policy. We worked with labor and industry to bring that historic investment to western Pennsylvania. And the first decision I made when I went to Harrisburg was to voluntarily post my own expenses on my website. I didn't need an act of Congress. I didn't need an act of the legislature. I voluntarily posted my expenses because your tax dollars should be fully transparent in the way politicians and elected officials spend your money. And then the next decision I did was to take that idea and introduce a bill to put our entire state budget on a website. And today you can go to penwatch.pa.us and you can see where we're spending your tax dollars. Transparency is the antidote to controlling spending, because the first step is to be able to see where we're spending your tax dollars, so then we can root out the waste easier, the fraud and abuse. Could you imagine if we had legislators in Washington that voluntarily posted their expenses online? We wouldn't need investigative reporters to uncover that millions of tax dollars have been used to settle sexual harassment claims in Washington. We need transparency, and that's the first step in controlling spending. I will tell you folks, Bob Casey wants no part of running against me, because he can't beat that legislative record, because he's been given 12 years to solve these problems, and we've got nothing to show for it. And so I may be a little bit of an unconventional candidate. I'm not the endorsed candidate, but I'm telling you that if you look into my record, you will see that I have an A rating on the Second Amendment. I'm 100% pro-life voting record. I don't need to give you the same old talking points that every candidate gives you at election time. You can look at my record. And so I ask you to join with me in this fight to finally fix Washington. Go to jimchristiana.org, meet with us in the back at our table, and let's get to work in solving the problems facing this country. God bless you and thank you. Do we have some time for some questions? Do I have some time for some questions? Any questions? Yes, sir.
Again, understand about the Social Security. I know how to solve that. I don't know if anybody knows what Social Security really meant when it first started. Social Security was supposed to be, when I grew up, that's what I was told, Social Security was supposed to be for working people that paid into it. That's right. Not the people that never worked in their whole life. They come from old Puerto Rico and everything. They're getting our Social Security, but never worked in life, and all the people worked in here, busted their butts, and they're taking our money, which they never worked in a day of their life, and they're getting our Social Security, and they said by 2050, Social Security's going to be broke.
Well, unfortunately, it's not even going to take that long because congressmen continue to raid those funds and use them for things other than paying Social Security benefits. Most recently, Bob Casey voted to take $1.5 trillion out of the Social Security Trust Fund to spend on other budget means. It's got to stop, and I agree with you. Stop number one is stop raiding the fund for things that it shouldn't be used to pay for. Step number two is, you're absolutely right that my son, who's a 2-year-old, shouldn't get the same retirement benefit that you all get. Because he's going to live to probably, hopefully, knock on wood, his life expectancy is going to be into his 80s. He should not ever expect to get a check when you all get a check. And I don't think that means, when we talk about Social Security reform, we cannot allow the left to hijack the conversation to say that we don't support senior citizens and we're going to privatize the system. No. We need to honor our commitment. Government needs to live up to its benefit, or live up to its end of the bargain. You're right. You've all lived up to your end of the bargain. And we've got to tell future generations that you're not going to get the same benefit. And I think if we give future generations the ability to prepare, I think that's a fair deal. Whatever the deal is, we need to honor it. And we're not honoring it to our senior citizens and those that are near retirement. And it's got to stop. I think I got time for one more quick question. Yes, sir.
I'd like to know your answer on this question. Any government benefit that anyone gets can only have it if they're a U.S. citizen. What do you say?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Because government doesn't give benefits. They take tax dollars from people not voluntarily. You are forced to give it to the government to then make priority decisions. And the same way as I don't think a city that is defiantly refusing to follow federal law deserves a cent of your tax dollars. And to be honest with you, I know that liberal comes tough on sanctuary cities. But that omnibus bill that he voted for, fully funded sanctuary cities, it gave $500 billion to Planned Parenthood. We've seen enough politicians who say one thing and then go to Washington and do another. Let's stop this madness and get to work. And I ask for your help. And I think I'm out of time. So thank you. God bless you.
Okay, that takes care of candidates that are here with either no opponent or their opponent didn't make it. We now have the next two groups. First of all, the two Democrats running for Congress in the 9th. Will they both come forward a while? And while they're coming forward, I just want to point out how we intend to do this. We were only going to have one at the last minute. The second one said he wanted to be here and make it. So I bent the rules because I want to be sure both parties get their opportunity. Therefore, I'm going to allocate 20 minutes for these two gentlemen, and I'm going to ask each to provide us with a 4-minute or 3-minute intro. And after the intro, we're going to throw it out to questions, and I'm going to emphasize we're not going to allow 4 speeches. There's not enough time tonight to have them. Frame your question, ask your question. Get it done within a minute so that these gentlemen have the opportunity to answer them. After the questions are through, we'll allow each of them for a 1-minute closing statement. And that's the way we're going to run it. So, may I ask the two gentlemen to come forward? What do we got? We got them here. Okay. First of all, Mr. Wolf. And Mr. Wolf can have a seat or he can stand. And Mr. Wegman. And greetings to you. You're welcome to each grab a chair, or you're welcome, you can stand. But whenever you got the clock going, we'll give you a 3-minute opening. Either one first, doesn't matter.
Thank you. It's great to be here in Berks County this evening. I'm Denny Wolf. I'm running for Congress in the 9th Congressional District as a Democrat. I'm a 3rd-generation farmer on my farm in Columbia County, where we have a herd of registered Holsteins. My wife Josie and I have about 200 head of cattle. We're going to have a reduction sale this Saturday, and advice to anyone that's running for public office, don't plan your reduction sale within 3 weeks of the primary, because it doesn't align very good. Creates for a lot of busy times at the farm this week. Our dairy farm also had an on-farm processing plant where we processed jug milk in returnable glass bottles and distributed it to a couple different counties up there. We employed around 18 people, so at one time our farm was actually the largest employer in the township that we live in. I did get off the farm a few times. I was appointed by the Clinton administration and then also reappointed by the Bush administration to serve on the World Trade Organization Ag Technical Committee. It was, for me, a real learning experience. I was able to go to the Hong Kong rounds, learn about things like tariffs, non-tariff barriers, and something that would be very helpful today is we're looking at some of the trade wars that are being proposed and some of the concerns that particularly the farmers have with those trade wars. I also served as Secretary of Agriculture for 7 years. The farmers markets are near and dear to my heart, like this one. Pennsylvania is actually, I think, in the top 10 in the United States for farmers markets. A great place for farmers to take their products and be able to sell them. As Secretary, I oversaw a workforce of 600 people. We had about a $200 million budget. We had a lot of programs like Pennsylvania Preferred, where we can label products and sell them at farmers markets like this, so folks could buy local products if they wanted to be easy to identify them, see the PA Preferred label on it. And we also started the Center for Dairy Excellence. I don't know if you folks are aware that dairy farmers are not having a good year this year. It is extremely tough times for them. I started when I was in Harrisburg, the Center for Dairy Excellence, which was another time when we had a huge downturn in the milk prices. It created a lot of hardship and heartburn for the farmers in Pennsylvania. That center is still up and running today, and it's helping farmers. I mean, the times are so difficult that they're even have like suicide lines where farmers can call in when they feel that distress. Because for dairy farmers, it's something that's been part of their lives for generations. And the thought of giving that up and not being able to continue their farming operation really creates a lot of heartache for these farms and just times that we can't hardly imagine. I served on the Board of Trustees at Penn State, University of Pennsylvania. One of the things that's a little bit outside of the realm of things that I've been involved with for the agriculture community and being able to serve in state government, we started part of our farm and dedicated it as a camp for handicapped children. It's called Camp Victory. And we serve around 1,700 children there every summer. So with that, I think I got the card, the high sign there, and I'll turn the microphone over to Gary for a few remarks on his part.
Sam.
Testing, 1, 2.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. When I look around this room, I see a lot of faces that remind me as if I'm at a family reunion. So, Denny and I have grown up with agricultural roots, and we're happy to be here with you people this evening. Because when we look at Congress, we don't see people that look like us. I'm a small businessman. I've been a 5th-generation farmer all my life, and I happen to be a healthcare professional for the past 35 years, running my own dental office in Exeter Township. I think our country is at its best when we safeguard and I am tired of the greed, the partisanship, the lack of leadership, and the gridlock that has become our politics as usual. And this is why I'm running for governor. And the number one issue that affects all of us in this room is health care. It's 20% of our national economy, and it is too expensive, period. And the reason it's too expensive is because we don't incentivize preventive services, we disincentivize. You've got to meet your deductible before you can get something done, so you don't want to go because you'd have to spend. Well, when healthcare reform, people were talking about healthcare reform, but I'm not hearing anything about it now. And the reason we're not hearing it is because the people we've elected to Congress are unwilling to take on the special interests that are profiting from the system as it currently is. I heard some other people speak about numbers up here of monies that can be saved by doing certain things. I can tell you, it's probably close to $1 trillion. I can't even get my head around that number. Close to $1 trillion of monies spent in health care on non-essential services annually. Fixing health care fixes everything. It's 18% of that new car you buy or truck you buy. Our school taxes would come down if we could bring down the cost of health care. And the way to do that is a purely American hybrid system. I'm not advocating socialized medicine. I want the hospitals, the doctors, the EMS teams to all compete in the private marketplace. But what we can do is bring a publicly funded, privately administered option to this, which means everybody has skin in the game. If you take a paycheck home in America, you pay a tax towards your health care. Now, our agriculture in Pennsylvania is our largest industry, and it's currently on a 4-year down cycle. I drive up Route 61 to all 8 counties in this 9th district, and I see tractor trailers from Cisco pulling in and out of our schools. And I ask myself, what did we evolve to? Why are we feeding our children where the farmers in the area pay their school taxes, but the schools are purchasing food from outside the state? We have the breadbasket right here in our backyard. Why don't we contract with the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau? Maybe we can't fund 100% of school food, but we should be having people back to work, chopping vegetables in the morning, cooking good food for our children, grown and raised here. Is that my time?
Okay, folks, we're now going to have Q&A time. Anybody that has a question for the candidates, raise your hand. Where's our rover? Fortunately, our mic is not doing its job. But any questions for any candidates at this time? I'm married, I can speak You have a question? Yeah. Go ahead.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry, I don't know what the 9th district is, and I don't even know if you guys are running for a statewide or nationwide seat. And the second person who spoke, I don't even know your name. Could you fill us in?
Okay. My name's Gary Wegman. Come to Eastport Market, you'll see the name Wegman on the poultry signs here. Those are my relatives. I've worked in their slaughterhouses and have worked on our farms in Berks County all my life. The 9th district is Berks. Schuylkill, Carbon, Columbia, Montour counties, parts of Northumberland, and parts of Luzerne. Not all of Berks, not the city of Reading, but the northern part. That's the new 9th district. It's U.S. Congress. This is your federal congressman that Denny and myself are running. Yes, this lady.
Yes, Mr. Wolf, and yourself. I have a question. All this time you've been involved with agriculture, and the dairy market has gone down. Dairy farmers are losing their farms. They're not getting enough money. What could that be? Do our children not get milk in school anymore today? Does milk no longer have the calcium necessary for their bodies? What happened to marketing? Aren't dairy farmers of any value? What about the market system? As I understood, when a dairy farmer farms, they pay for the marketing, they pay for hauling.
Testing, 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 testing.
All this time with
Testing.
agriculture and dairy,
Testing,
the dairy market, how are you helping?
testing,
How do
testing,
you help the farmers? And how can you help the farmers?
testing,
Coming on.
testing, testing.
Okay, it's working now.
Testing.
Federal dairy policy is considered by most the most complex policy that is in Congress. That's part of the problem. When people sit down to discuss it, you have federal milk marketing orders, you have 4 classes of milk, and milk is priced by a product price formula that has to do with surveys that go out 2 different times of the month. Then you have an advanced price, and then you have a final price, and you have differentials as to what zip code you live in that's based on the supply of milk from a surplus area to a minus area. That's just the beginning of it. So it's very complicated and complex. So it's very hard to get federal dairy policy reform move forward. One of the problems that dairy farmers have today, when they get in a down cycle like this, there is too much milk and not enough consumption. We're in a global market. So it's not only about the schools here, it's how much milk is being produced in the European Union, how much rain they had in New Zealand, and how much product they're sending to the Far East, to some of the markets over there. So a lot of different factors go into why the price was here last year and it's down here today. What we can do for the dairy farmers is that we can put a safety net in place to help them when it takes a severe drop like it has right now. Last Farm Bill, they put in place a program called the Margin Protection Program. It was not well designed. It did not work. They have just revised it, and it looks like it has some chance of working for the dairy farmers in terms of giving them a couple dollars a hundredweight when prices get this extremely low. Going forward, I think there's lots of things to look at. Should we have 4 classes of milk? Should we have 2 classes of milk? Would that put more competition in the marketplace? Would that competition bring the prices up? So the list goes on and on and on. Like I said, it's a complicated policy, but it's something that we really, really need to address, because it's not only the dairy farmer, it's the entire community. They are the economic background.
Briefly, the sad reality is farmers are price takers. They're not price makers. And this is one of the things that hurts tremendously in our ag industry. Because when supply is excessive like we have right now, we need to aggressively be pursuing more new markets for our products. And I was never in favor of the TPP because I felt for the past 35 years we've outsourced too many of our good jobs. But there were provisions in the Southeast Asia marketing community for some of our ag commodities. And I hope Sonny Perdue is actively pursuing those, because we need to get there. But again, healthcare is back. bankrupting our dairy farmers and all our ag industry in itself. We need to fix health care so that everybody doesn't have to worry about whether they move out of state or change a job. Health care goes with them. And with regards to health care, drinking whole milk is not a problem in my book. It's about moderation, and I would change that to get whole milk back in school. And that's coming from the medical profession.
Question over here.
My name is Roger Big, and I'm from Robinson Township, Berks County. We've been talking about milk, and I'm not a solution. I wasn't even one day. I'm actually no teachers here. What major items on Mr. Trump's agenda would you support and why, and would you not support and why? Either man.
I'll start. Go ahead, I think the infrastructure idea is a great one. It's something that's desperately needed in parts of rural Pennsylvania like we live in. Roads need repaired, bridges are outdated. When I talk to the guy that hauls my milk, he's got to take a special route to go around certain areas, and it costs him a lot of money, and it obviously then costs the farmers a lot of money. So infrastructure would be something that I could fully support him in, and I think that it is something that would benefit the local economy because of jobs, and it's also something that's desperately needed here. One of the things that he did that I do not like is the TPP. I feel should have been looked at, and we should move that forward to look at how we could modify that and not walk away from the table on that. I think that the TPP is something that could benefit agriculture and benefited this country if it was structured right. I would not have thrown in the towel there and walked away from it. I would have continued the negotiations. Hopefully they're going to come back and do that. That's at least the latest information I received on it.
I would echo Danny's point about infrastructure, because it's about jobs, people. We need those good jobs. We have the need here in the 9th District. We have the infrastructure needs, and this is something that's bipartisan. We could have gotten support on both sides. I did agree that we needed tax reform. We were promised a simplified tax code that would be fair to everyone, but unfortunately the law that was passed didn't do either of those things. I would have supported 90% of it. I don't think the wealthiest among us needed the tax rate that they were given, because we may need that incentive if the economy goes south. Our economy is not as great as it could be, but we're not doing as badly as we once were. I would have saved that for another day. That would have been one thing I would have preferred to see different. But again, that was Congress, not necessarily our president. But he backed it. So I hope that helps.
So you wouldn't have voted for that bill? Would you have voted for the tax bill as it was?
For the tax bill as it was, no.
At the beginning of this meeting, there was a lot of conversation about the Second Amendment. Could you comment on your position on the Second Amendment?
Yeah, I have no interest in taking away anybody's Second Amendment rights. Thank you for this question, because it's important. Somebody was talking earlier about the kids that are angry and mobilized today. I really think the children want the same thing that everybody in this room wants, and that's safe schools and not having to feel like you're going into Fort Knox every time you go to an athletic event or some other event at your school. The kids want to be safe. They don't want to feel threatened or in danger when they go to school, and we're adults. We get it. It's probably more dangerous to drive over here. Somebody talked about the texting problem that we're having on our roads. But the young kids in school don't, and they get very fearful when they see all these other things added on top. I get fearful wondering how we're going to pay for it. There's real low-hanging fruit that we can all agree on here, no matter which side of the aisle it is, and that's a 50-state solution to a mandatory background check with a uniform, universal reporting platform, so nobody falls through the cracks. If you're a violent offender, domestic violence or something like this, if needs to be reported whether they're coming from the military or anywhere else. So we need a 50-state solution to that. We need a 50-state solution for this red flag legislation, and that would have taken care of Sandy Hook, Parkland, if everybody does their job as they're supposed to. And if Denny will let me do one last comment. I'm a gun owner, I'm a farmer, I use my rifle and my gun every year, many times. And I know if you're under 18 years of age in Pennsylvania, you have to take a hunter safety course before you can get a license in Pennsylvania. I don't understand the first time that somebody buys a gun. When my kid turned 16, I didn't flip him the keys and tell him, go have at it. We should have a firearms safety permitting process that the first time you go for that license, you've got to go through the rules. We've got children that we teach at home, but our urban Corps doesn't do it that way, and they need to go through the same way to load the weapon, carry the weapon, store the weapon. They need to understand how to use a firearm responsibly, and I think we all need to get behind that legislation.
I grew up on a dairy farm in northeastern Pennsylvania, so I don't need to say much more about where I fall in the Second Amendment. It's part of who you are, and when you grow up there in good deer hunting country like I have, I was following my dad in the woods about as soon as I could walk. So, you know, it's near and dear to me. It's near and dear to the folks that I graduated high school with, and it's near and dear to the folks that are my neighbors and friends. You know, I think that the Second Amendment is something that we need to respect. I support it 100%. I agree with Gary. There's some problems there. You can keep the guns out of the hands of criminals. You can keep the hands out of the people that are mentally ill. You can keep the guns out of the hands of people that have PFAs against them. You solve the problem. And I think today with the information technology system we have, you should be able to push one button and take a look. I don't think this, you know, having to wait days for a check coming back on you for to apply for a gun is reasonable. For example, I got a silencer for my gun. A silencer is a bad word because it's associated with something. I don't know why, but I got it to basically the recoil is much less and it saves your hearing. And it's much more fun to shoot targets with the silencer is up. And it took me a year. It took me 12 months to get that. So you apply for it, it goes wherever it goes, and then it eventually finally gets back. And so I understand the frustration of gun owners with how long it takes sometimes, but that's kind of the underlying problem. Solve that problem, solve the problem with most of the issues that make the headlines in the papers today.
All right, next question is here. Hold on for a second, I'll be right over.
Yes or no? Vote yes or no, both candidates. The question is, will either of you vote, if you're elected to Congress, to close the border? Yes or no? Thank you.
Border security is a huge part of Homeland Security, no doubt about it. But I'll tell you what, the farmer in me, when I look at building a wall, it's going to cost $70 or $80 billion, and we have how many $1 trillion of deficit? I have a little heartburn with that. That doesn't make sense to me. I would much rather see that put into infrastructure here, deal with the border, deal with it. But building a wall is going to cost that many billions of dollars. I could not support that.
As I stated earlier, I've been a medical professional for 35 years, and one of the things they teach us is to treat the problem, not the symptom. I don't see a one-size-fits-all answer for our problems at our borders, but I will gladly support all the people defending our border and listening to them telling me, as a congressman representing you, what's the most efficient and best use of our tax resources to defend our border. So the answer would be a wall all across the southern border. I don't think that fits. Portions of it, if I'm told that needs to be there, I'd support it 100% by the people who are in charge of coming up with solutions for the problem, because they're at ground zero. They know what we need. I hope that answers the question.
We're about 10 minutes behind schedule.
Hold on, please. You have to go in order. This gentleman was next.
I have a question for both candidates, and it goes back to the agriculture. I know someone very close to me that is in the dairy farm, so you two can $1 grant to automate his farm. He bought the equipment from Holland, the country Holland, not New Holland in Pennsylvania, automated his farm, doubled his milk production, laid off an employee that he was paying full time, and now they come in with the milk trucks because their production is so high. They take the milk from his tanks, go dump it 100 yards away in a pit, and then write him a check from the government. Why is the government involved with agriculture with that kind of money, laying off employees in this state, buying equipment from a foreign country? Why are they dumping money like that in there?
I think I answered that when I first started, that I'm very much about buying local and supporting local first. Okay. I also said earlier that I don't see people in Congress like Penny and myself. Okay, we're small businessmen, and we realize what you just described makes absolutely no sense to anybody in this room. Okay, I couldn't be supportive of wasteful spending of our precious hard-earned dollars for something like that. And I heard other stories about milk having to be dumped and other products that were subsidized by our government and jobs lost as a result of it. I think we have to get smarter, which is why everybody's here tonight. Look at who we're putting into Congress, okay? And how are they going to represent us most effectively? How about that?
I'm not sure where the guy got the $1 million grant. I've never seen a program quite like that. But let me tell you where the problem is in the dairy industry today. It's a guy that's the family farmer is trying to milk 60 cows. He's up against the wall. And I'll tell you what, that represents a really large percentage of the farms in Pennsylvania. A guy milking 60 cows, it costs him around $18 to $20 a hundredweight to produce that milk. The guy that's milking 2,000 cows, he can produce it for $15 a hundredweight. So he's still making a few bucks when prices are this low. The guy's milking 60 cows, he's taking money right out of his retirement fund every morning, he turns the lights on. So I think whatever kind of dairy policy we have, it has to focus on trying to help those that need it in the dairy industry. And that for the size of the dairy farms in Berks County or Columbia County or anywhere in the 9th Congressional District is basically the 60, 70 cow herd. That's where the program has to focus because it's about saving that farm. But like I said, it's the hardware store, it's the implement dealer, it's the guy selling seed corn, it's the veterinarian. The money gets recycled time and time again. So it's not just about that farm that no longer has cows. You know, one guy milking 60 cows may be pulling $1 or $2 million out of the local economy for the number of times those dollars are recycled. That's what we need to focus on.
This microphone system just drove my schedule right out the window, so bear with me. Bruce, you have a question?
30 seconds each. What do you feel about how do you feel about Obamacare?
With Obamacare, I don't care whether they repeal it and replace it or what we do with that. But we need some kind of a healthcare system that's going to address the needs that we have. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It's got 3 parts to it. It's got medical expenses that are out of control. It has a consuming public that is insured, that is older people and sicker folks, and the insurance company in the middle. Those 3 have to align somehow. We need to have less cost in terms of medical care costs. We need to encourage people to live healthier lifestyles. We need to have some kind of an insurance company in the middle that's going to charge a fair and equitable rate. But it's a big problem. It's the #1 problem, whether it's a working class families or whether it's a dairy farmer.
Yeah, 30 seconds. I don't support the Affordable Care Act because it leaves for-profit medical insurance in the center, which is the source of all the inflation in this system. And it's also what's prevented real Americans getting real wage growth for the past 35 years because we've had to pour it all into our healthcare bills. So the Affordable Care Act kept the medical insurance industry profiting off of other people's misfortune. I want a publicly funded but privately administered system that has all the risk pool in the same system, and we negotiate just like the VA does for costs of medications and costs of healthcare services, so we control that from getting out of hand and let the private industry work in the marketplace for those dollars like everybody else does.
We're out of time actually, but I'm way behind schedule. We didn't schedule these questions. If you have a quick question for a quick answer,
What is your position on privatizing the Veterans Administration, and if not, what would you do to maintain it so it's worth its weight in gold?
Yes or no, I would not privatize it, and whatever it takes to do it, because this folks, they fought for us, we think
I agree with what Dick said. I don't agree with privatizing Social Security. I don't agree with privatizing VA. I don't agree with privatizing prisons. We need to do the responsibility that you people elect us there to strengthen and enhance these programs, not to dismantle them and abdicate our responsibility.
Okay, folks, each of you can do a 1-minute rap if you wanted to tell us one more time why you wanted this job. Okay, well, thank both of you for attending this evening. We're going to get nailed by the curfew. Okay. This was allegedly our main event, but things got messed up, but it's still considerably our main event. I'd like both Scott Ellinger and George Alkovich to come to the stage, please. Sam. This was going to be a 3-person panel forum this evening, and it was going to be rock and soccer. We developed a series of questions that we consider important to us, and we want to make sure their opinions and position on issues get out there. We'll try to have as many questions in as we can. The intention is each one will get a few minutes to speak, and after their few minutes, and after I get a few questions in, we'll open it up out there. Now, we had intended to have 3 candidates. Unfortunately, the third candidate, Dan Loser, told us months ago, as these 2 gentlemen did, that he would be here, and we planned accordingly. This morning he called and told us he had other commitment, and putting the problem on us. Well, I can't speak to Dan personally, but I know that if a person spends as much money as he's spending on radio and television, it would seem to me this is the place he ought to be, because we have less coverage. I have every reason to believe our research team did a lot of research to get the right issues on the table and the right questions asked. And unfortunately, since one of the candidates is missing, and I don't want to see those hours of research go to waste, so I'm encouraging you folks, when we put together for the 3 candidates, and particularly the one that's a no-show, we have all of the data that you need to know about the 3rd candidate back there on the table. And I encourage you, before I leave tonight, after you fully understand the position of these two candidates, you make sure you pick up that piece of paper and learn what the third candidate is all about, because what goes on television and radio without a response isn't necessarily what needs to be heard. These two gentlemen are willing to take the heat, express their position, and determine if the audience has something else to say. Okay, with that in mind, I'm going to give each one 3 minutes, 4 minutes, we'll give 3 minutes opening statements, and then after the 3 minutes of opening statements, I'll start it off with a question, 2 or 3, before the audience. When we get to the audience, if anybody has a question during the period of time they're talking, you raise your hand. Our rover will come around, he'll give your question a number, and he'll put your name on it. He'll give them to me. When I'm ready to break in with questions from the audience, whichever one question is the number 1, he'll get the first opportunity to ask his 4th question. So with that in mind, may I ask each of the candidates to give their opening comments.
Hello, folks. My name is Scott Mueller, and I am running for Congress in the 9th Congressional District as a Republican. Courage. Winston Churchill said that courage was the most important human quality because it was the one quality that guaranteed all the other qualities. And I will be a courageous congressman. My background is, I live in Berks County in Compton. I'm a veteran, 28-year Navy veteran, a non-politician, and I was a Trump delegate to the convention. And I'm running because I'm tired of the same old, same old. The president and his agenda are moving forward, and it's a good agenda. And what I see is he doesn't have the support he deserves and the American people deserve in Congress. And I'm going to do something about that. 3 basic ideas involving the president and his policies. One is we must build a wall. The United States must have borders, because without borders, we're not a country. All right? I think a lot of you know, but I am the husband and I am the father for legal immigrants into this country. And every time we provide services or allow illegal immigrants into our country, it's a slap in the face to all of the hardworking, recent legal immigrants into the United States. It's an insult to them. So I have a personal stake in that, and it really concerns me. And I plan on totally supporting the president in any immigration reform when it comes to E-Verify, building the wall, ending chain migration, moving to a points-based system. Second is deregulation. Okay, deregulation is the key to economic growth. President Trump has done a great job so far with deregulation, getting rid of regulations and allowing businesses, energy businesses, which concerns Pennsylvania, we have coal, oil, but also every other small business across the country and across the state. Deregulation allows companies to hire people with less trouble, to conform to fewer burdensome regulations, and results in greater economic prosperity. And so I fully support deregulation. It extends to everything we were talking about. It extends into healthcare and every other sphere, energy and business. And the last thing that's very important to me is draining the swamp. Now I know it's a stereotype, but what I mean is, and what we have is, a swamp is, we have an unelected bureaucracy in Washington that is blocking the president and the will of the people at every turn, and it must be stopped. I sworn an oath to the Constitution, and I know a lot of people in this room have also done the same thing. And it outrages me that these people in the Justice Department and the IRS and elsewhere continually violate the oath they took to the Constitution, and it must end. And I am determined to go down there and do what I can, everything in my power, to drain that swamp. And then lastly, I also believe in term limitations. And the idea that we're citizen politicians. I have no desire to get rid of the permanent political class. If people would like me to stay down there for 6 years, that would be fine. After that, I foresee coming back home. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm George Halkovich, and first of all, before I do anything else, I'd like to give an applause for the service to our country that Scott has given. Being a parent of 5 children, having 7 grandchildren, my 2 sons-in-law attending the Naval Academy, and still serving their country, I understand what that is about from that standpoint. I've been married to my wife, Barbara, for 37 years. We are very fortunate, and I tell people that I live in the district, I work in the district, I have an insurance agency in Minersville, Pennsylvania. I worship in the district, which I think is extremely important, and I also serve the people of the district. I've been the county commissioner for 7.5 years. I've been also fortunate enough to have the Republican county commissioners in the state have me as their chairman. I just stepped down when I got into this race, but it is very important because, believe it or not, in Pennsylvania, 80% of the counties are Republican majority, and we are trying to get things done. I will tell you that my view of what I am going to do at Congress is we need to get back to the people, okay? I do not consider myself a politician. I am a public servant. It is my job to go to events, and I will tell you, when I first ran as a commissioner, came to the Patriots to be educated, to understand what the needs and what you really feel about the issues that are out there. Today I was at PCN, and they said to me, so how do you feel about lobbyists? I said, I report to the people. I do not report to lobbyists. I do not want to hear. I need to hear from the people from the 9th Congressional District as to what the issues are. Again, one of the great things and one of the reasons I ran, I have a situation where I deal with commissioners from every one of the counties that we're dealing in. Again, give Christian Leinbach a lot of credit for what he's done. Let's talk about the problem about the spotted lanternfly. Okay? That's doing in orchards and vineyards. That's a serious problem. And they don't have anything right now that can combat that. Christian took that to a national level. And really, we've supported it because we're under quarantine right now. Dairy farmers, another serious issue that we have. I'm dealing with the VA. 80% of our veterans from Schuylkill County go to Lebanon VA. In fact, my cousin is actually the medical director there. We need to provide for our veterans the care that they deserve because they were the ones that provided us with freedoms that we have. That's extremely important. I deal with the Central Salt and Resource Center with Lebanon County, the Workforce Investment Board with Luzerne County. We're working on a radio system with Montour and Columbia counties. I understand the district. Again, I'm here to hear from you and to do the right thing for the people of the 9th Congressional District. And again, I also honor this gentleman up here who's running also because he respects that he lives in the district. He could have run in another district. He chose to stay in this district. So, a round of applause for Scott again, please.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll now go with our questions before we get to the audience, but if anybody has one up till now, raise your hand. We don't have any yet. There's one. My first question was going to be, what's your position on supporting President Trump's agenda? And I don't know I don't know if you actually covered that already, but if you have anything to add to it, please do.
One of the amazing things about the Trump agenda, what they did was they invited, on a bipartisan basis, all the county commissioners. Pennsylvania was the first group of county commissioners to come down. We had the opportunity to speak to the secretaries, and it was a very positive thing. We're there to support the president. I do not like situations, when I became a county commissioner, I had commissioners before me that kicked. We solve things, and that's what's happening right now in Washington. They're not used to having somebody that really wants to get a solution instead of just talk about a solution. So I'm going to support that. The other thing is, I was invited by the White House to come down and work on the tax plan also, to weigh in for municipalities and counties. So I'll pass it on right now to Scott.
Thanks, Jim. Of course, the Trump agenda, the idea of increasing American prosperity, enhancing our national security is spot on. I haven't seen personally a single thing that the president has done that I am opposed to. Our foreign policy, we have our national security right now, we're in a much more safe, secure position than we were 2 years ago, there's no doubt about it. We have unprecedented discussions forthcoming with North Korea, for example. No one could have conceived of that 20 years ago. And of course, the president gets no credit at all for that. Economic growth, and slowly he's chiseling away at the welfare state and doing things like reducing the eligibility of illegal immigrants to social services, which costs Pennsylvanians, illegal immigration costs Pennsylvanians almost $2 billion every year. So that's another example of a small thing that's happening behind the scenes that's very important to all of us here in Pennsylvania. And I will continue to support the president in everything until, as long as he continues to embrace conservative principles.
Thank you, gentlemen. I go to question number 2. Second Amendment. Are you a member of the NRA or a gun club? Do you have a concealed carry permit? Do you support national reciprocity? The last 4 words of the Second Amendment state, shall not be infringed. What does that mean to you? And we'll give you up to 2 minutes to expand on that one.
The answers are yes, yes, no. I'm a lifetime member of the NRA, and I do have a concealed carry permit. And I absolutely believe in national reciprocity. That absolutely should be done. And in fact, we came short of that. And we have to remember that, that's right, shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment, all it is vocal. It's setting down on paper a God-given right for all of us to defend ourselves. And somebody, I think what Sam has said before, remember, one of the values of President Trump is that he allows us to see our enemies clearly. Different people have revealed themselves in their rage directed towards Trump. We see that a lot of these people who talk about the Second Amendment, they're actually gun grabbers. We've seen them for what they really are. And these people are determined. First, they're going to eliminate the Second Amendment, and then second, they're going to eliminate the First Amendment. And I think it's clearer now than it ever was. And talking to people in the district, this came up more than anything else. Is people in the 9th District are very concerned about this, and they will have a tireless championing me. It absolutely must be protected, and with no alteration for what we have right now.
I can only put it the way Scott put it. I mean, you look at the issues that we have, and one thing you'll find out about Scott and myself, you're not going to see many differences, because he understands it, I understand it. I'm a lifetime member of the NRA. I do not have a concealed carry. Reciprocity, totally agree with Scott. It is, the Second Amendment is extremely important, and I also go back to, again, being pro-life, and that is a major issue, and I think that life is the major issue. I think that when you're talking about Second Amendment and everything else, it all goes back to our right to life. And without, from conception to natural death. That's a part of what we are about. And that's part of what you, I always tell people who tell me that they are choice, if their parent made a different decision, we wouldn't be having that conversation. And that's something that we really have to look at. So I totally agree with Scott. I'm not going to answer for our other opponent, but again, we are on the same page on that.
I think the current opponent is silent on the issue. That answer would segue to my next question. Our founding fathers believed emphatically that all laws are to be based upon the Bible and that any law runs contrary to the scriptures, it has no validity and is to be ignored. For example, there are those that maintain that the Roe versus Wade decision is antithetical to the scripture. So the question is, would you stand by the court's decision or sponsor a bill to override Roe versus Wade?
I already answered that in another way, but the opposite of pro-life is pro-death. I am pro-life. I remember the Knights of Columbus. We put ultrasounds in crisis pregnancy centers to make, when there's a difficult situation that a young lady has, and that decision has to be made, we're there to support, to protect life. That is extremely important. So there's nothing, if we can make it, Roe v. Wade, put it out. I go to the March for Life with my grandchildren. And I can tell you that I have a situation where my daughter was having her third child and had developed MRSA. And the doctor came to her down in Virginia. It was when my son-in-law was actually working in the White House military office, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And the doctor had to go to my daughter and say, you know, do you want to terminate? And she said, yesterday I walked on the March for Life. There is no way that I'm going to affect the life of my child. And you know, I have a grandchild by the name of Aoife that is just the most beautiful little child, and I always remember that.
I also, I echo George's comments. What we see sometimes in our society now with shootings and problems with morality in our society is partly based on the fact that we have a society that embraces things like abortion. And we pay a price for that. We pay a price for that in our civil society. We've got to move away from that, and George went on the March for Life, so did I. And the thing that was really heartening about that was the number of young people there. There were a lot of young people there, and also because technology is making us, is letting us understand more the life of very young infants in the womb, and we understand that they feel pain, that, and by giving this information to mothers who are thinking about an abortion, they can make a more informed decision. So the good thing is that I think the trend of technology is helping the cause of pro-life. And we've got to continue to foster that. And I will be a very strong proponent of, you know, of any pro-life.
Okay, we'll break now for a question from the audience, and the number one question is from Ed Bender. You want to ask it? You know, you're close enough to the mic, you can borrow the mic.
I'll follow it.
Go ahead.
For 200 years, our government was not involved in our healthcare decisions or system. Is it necessary today for the government to be involved?
First of all, my background, I have an insurance agency. So I understand what the needs are, but I don't believe that government should be involved in everything in our lives. I mean, I look at it where we're trying to, say with Berks County, we brought up a conversation about having a joint prison, okay, in order to save the taxpayers' money, okay? We're looking at possibly a privatization of that. We have to look at these issues. They are serious issues that we have. And what you do in any type of government, all due respect, I surround myself by people who are more intelligent than I am, okay? And it's extremely important to be able to hear from other people. You need not to hear just from one side, you need to hear both sides. And so, from a healthcare standpoint, healthcare is very important. But I think that the private system can do a very good job in providing for that. I feel sorry for doctors from that standpoint, that before they are concerned about making it, trying to help, and again, I believe in divine providence, okay? God's in charge. God is in charge of these situations. But the situation that we have from healthcare, we need to have healthcare. We want to make sure that everyone has healthcare. But government does not have to be involved at all times.
Good question. I share George's reluctance to embrace the government mandated healthcare. You know, I worked in the agency. I was overseas in the former Soviet Union a lot, many years overseas. And what I saw was the tragedy of socialism, and socialism was involved in healthcare, and how disastrous that was in every country I saw. So I'm very leery about, I'm a small government guy, I'm very leery of government getting involved in things. Now, if there's a way that the government can somehow encourage the private sector to get in there and change the marketplace, and that's something that definitely has to be looked at. But government itself involved, it immediately reduces efficiency and immediately makes a less responsive healthcare system.
I'm going to come back on that just 1 second also, because this is where I also feel when we talk about people that are in politics that use words, buzzwords, to make you feel good about things. No. Okay? Let's talk about when they're talking about the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare. 7.5 years we talked about we have to repeal, okay? They didn't expect President Trump to get in. All of a sudden he's in. Let's do it. Guess what? We don't have a plan. Okay? One of the things that was neat on the tax plan that worked out very well, and one of the things the Trump administration does, the House Treasury Department and the Senate Finance Committee, they were working on that for 9 months. Okay? They understood where the differences were going to be, and then they went into conference to resolve that. That's where we stepped in to say, okay, here's the plan that we have, now let's work it out. But for people to say that they have a solution and just talk words, that troubles me. I know it troubles Scott as well.
Scott, the next question, you get twice the time. And I don't even know the next question, but we're going to go to the audience again. And I got Joe Rocky.
I'm from Loudoun County, and I just watched the Loudoun County Republican Party attempt to rig an election. And I wanted to ask this question of the invisible candidate, but since he's not here, we have a county committee chairman who is working for the invisible candidate's campaign. Did not tell anyone on this committee that he's working for that campaign. Went in there, and I was told, didn't even give the two of you a voice to get up or platform, made it look like he was the only candidate in this race. We talk about draining the swamp. Well, I got a swamp in my backyard, and it's called the Loudoun County Republican Committee. So I'm wondering
Well, that's a good question, Jim, and I'll answer on behalf of my colleague here. This kind of thing is what people, the grassroots, are tired of. We're all tired of this kind of thing. We see it on the macro level. We see it in Washington with a bunch of Republican congressmen in office, and when they're out of power, they're conservatives. Oh, I'm a conservative, I'm a conservative. And the minute they get into power, they're suddenly a Republican again, and they're not a conservative when it comes to like fiscal stuff around. And this kind of old boy network, and they get disconnected from the people. And that's the whole problem. That's why I am running, because I personally am tired of this stuff. And I know everyone here is tired of it. I mean, I've been coming here for years. And so I share the frustrations of everyone here, and this is why we've got to stand up by having other candidates that can fight against this type of thing. And George and I are dedicated to fighting against this type of thing. And you know, basically I think, you know, sunlight has a remarkably curative effect. You know, put some sunlight on this stuff and maybe the mold will disappear.
It's interesting, Scott and I, we have conversations, and because one of the things that, no matter who is the congressman, we need to work together. Scott is a real person. I have to also respect my Democratic opponents also, to hear what their thoughts are as well, okay? Let's talk about Denny being a dairy farmer. I mean, that's huge, okay? That's important, because at the end of the day, we're talking about what's good for the 9th Congressional District. I appreciate what your comments were, and again, I got to the endorsement meeting, and Scott came up to me and he said, "We're not allowed to speak." I said, "That's all right." I said, "You know what? We're going to be speaking to the real people right after this. It doesn't matter about an endorsement. We can go through every endorsement that you have. All that we want is the endorsement of the people that we represent. We are the ones that answer to you, to no one else." So from that standpoint, being a public servant, we're there for you. And I will tell you, I feel very comfortable that we'll both do well in Lebanon County. I really do, because of real people like you. Understand, this is the neat thing for me. I've always said this. It's about family and friends and neighbors. One of the greatest things is the electoral system, in that every person's vote is one vote. Rich man, poor man, everyone gets that same vote. And you're the ones who make the difference in elections.
Okay, thank you. We'll try one from the podium now. There are 28 right-to-work states. PA is not one of them. An independent survey concluded that Pennsylvania is at or near the bottom, attracting and keeping business and jobs. Right-to-work states are doing a lot better. What's your position on a national right-to-work law? And Pennsylvania seems not to be moving ahead on one.
What I can tell you is, at a county level, we did a resolution about right to work, okay? Unions weren't very happy about it. They came in, and all I said is, all we want is an even playing field. That's all there is. And I put it into the category of being an insurance agent. I went to them and I said to the people from the union there, I said, okay, I'm the insurance agent for the unions. And guess what? I'm going to charge you 30 to 40% more because I'm the agent for them. Are you going to buy your insurance from me? Heck no, you're not, okay? We need to make sure that there's equity. I respect the training that's done from that standpoint, but as far as the national right to work, that's something, and I will be straight up on it. I will research to see if it should be the national or the federal government doing that from that standpoint. But again, that's in listening to what you say to make sure that I'm making a good decision to hear all the information.
Yeah, regarding the right to work, 28 states, but not Pennsylvania. I know that mostly the southern states, a lot of automobile manufacturing states, in fact. But yet, and like George, we have to have a level playing field. It's wrong that, you know, government is retaining union dues, helping with that process. And it's simply not a level playing field, and it must be looked at. And I would definitely look seriously at a national right to work law. And I see that actually as a former union member. I was actually a union member in American Maritime Officers, but I'm a skeptic with some of the approaches that unions take in our state and other states, and so I would definitely look at that very seriously. Because we've got to keep people in Pennsylvania. We've got to retain them, good workers.
take the liberty of the moderator and just make a comment on right to work. Setting aside economics of it all, states claim, some politicians claim, that right to work is a state issue under the 10th Amendment. The First Amendment is for everybody. And if the First Amendment is violated, I don't care about the Second Amendment. Okay. I'm going to go to the audience again. And Larry.
No candidate this question. Can both the candidates confirm that Dan User does not live in the 9th District? And to confirm that both of you live in the 9th District, work in the 9th District, live in the 9th District, and can vote for yourself on Election Day in the 9th District?
I'll answer for both of us, yes. You are correct, Larry. Again, one of the things that we've looked at from our standpoint is, again, you have to know your neighbors. You have to know what the issues are. One of the things that I always do is, being a county commissioner, some people think I'm cloned because I go to a lot of events. Why do I go to a lot of events? Because I hear from the people. I hear from the real people. Okay, whether it be an Eagle Scout, whether it be a church picnic, whether it be we're going tomorrow to Shenandoah School to talk to the students. That's when we have to hear the issues. And walking along and hearing from you, as I said, I have my cell phone on my car. I want to hear from the real people because I'm not owning to anyone above me. God, I am. Let's qualify that being above me. But I need to hear from you because, and I'll say for Scott, we're one of you. And that's what we will do. I can always tell you that there may be times that we may respectfully disagree on something, but you know what? Convince me from that standpoint, give me the information. You have to be open to new ideas and what to do. And so I will confirm, we are the two that do live in the district, and my understanding is our two Democratic candidates also live in the district as well. So in being equal time.
Yeah, George is right about that, and it is all about listening to the people. He lives outside the district, and he certainly doesn't have much connection to the southern part of the district where most of the population is, and that's a shame. He lives in a district that is controlled by a Democratic congressman, but he chose not to run against him, which is somewhat troubling to me. He obviously was happy to have his own family live under a Democratic congressman in his own district. So that's unfortunate, you know. But I think that the people in the 9th District deserve better than that.
Full confession, I don't live in the district. I'm going to try another. By the way, I have 9 questions about there, and I'm going to do my best to get them in. So if you can make the question brief without a soliloquy, and if you can get to the point, we'll get more questions in and learn more about what you folks stand for. Okay, we're going to go to Tracy Gould.
I work for the electric utility, and weekly we're hearing about plants that are closing, and nothing in this area, but what is your thought on the energy policy for the United States? Do you support what they call an all-in energy policy that not only includes renewables, but also includes nuclear and clean coal?
That's a good question. Alternate energy, certainly. Clean coal, definitely. Nuclear power, definitely. Our nuclear plants are like an average of more than 25, actually 30, 35 years old. They need to be refurbished. We need to have that because energy security is national security, period. Thank God, deregulation has been, leading to a little bit of an energy renaissance in this country. So now we're looking at, next year we're going to be the largest producer of natural gas in the world. And then by 2023 or something, we're going to be the largest petroleum producer again. and that's the right way to go. As far as alternative energy, like wind power and other things, there are a lot of hidden costs there that are deliberately withheld from the average person. So those are touted as being solutions to our energy problems, and they really are not. They can help a little bit on the margins, but there's no substitute for using coal, oil, and natural gas. That always has to be the centerpiece of any energy policy we have.
Thank you, Scott. I agree with Scott on that, and I'm going to take it even one more step. The amount of regulations that are put on our energy providers is overburdensome. That's part of the problem. And one of the things, I use the example with the anthracite coal region. What they do is they close the MSHA office that does all the licensing and also the inspections. They put it out to Pittsburgh, which is a soft coal area. Different world, different world. So now we have overregulation. No one in that business wants to do something that is not safe, okay? But it's a matter of being overregulated, and I respect what the president's doing as far as with regulations. If there's something new that's going to go on, two are coming off, and that's what we need to do.
I'm going to take on the podium now, since this committee put these questions together. I got to use them too. So the next question is on DACA, dreamers, anchor babies, and all related to illegal immigration in one form or another. Based on the 14th Amendment, a pregnant woman who crosses our border illegally and gives birth soon thereafter, the child is automatically a U.S. citizen. This then promotes the chain migration. Would you support an amendment to the Constitution regarding this practice, or what would be your solution to the immigration policy in general?
Again, I respect, and one of the things in talking to Scott, getting to know Scott very well, is with his family becoming here legally. That is extremely important. What the president had put on the table to try to get everyone documented, and again, let's not talk about the broad scope where aunts, uncles, grandparents, and everybody else come in, but it's a matter of getting the controls to know what we have from an immigration standpoint. And the president had given that 3-year basis to say, okay, let's get this done, let's make sure we know who all is here, and let's stop it from down the line. Certain times you've got to take what happened in the past, put it behind, and set the line right now. And I believe that that's part of what we need to do as a federal government.
Yeah, clearly we have to undertake major immigration reform. Okay, E-Verify, we need to do that because that will put the onus on employers to not employ illegal immigrants, and that will reduce the demand. So that's one good step. Another important step is you've got to eliminate the chain migration. It's not employed in any other country. It's ridiculous. It should be immediately scrapped. The idea of the visa lottery, a random lottery, this was instituted in the mid-60s by Ted Kennedy primarily. It's ridiculous, and it has to be scrapped as well. Other countries that are a lot more liberal than we are, have a lot more strict immigration policies. Australia, Canada, they're much more liberal countries, but yet they do it the right way. You only come into the country if you have some kind of, okay, there's always refugees, that's a separate category. But if you have a marketable skill, if you bring something to the table, then you're allowed into Australia or into, Canada. We should employ the same kind of policy. And there's always room for refugees and victims of persecution. That's a separate category. But it's clear we need to do something because it is bleeding us to death financially.
Thank you. Back to the audience. Ron Boltz, next.
Hi, gentlemen. Your opponent, no show, Dan Muser, campaigns as a conservative and also opposed to illegal immigration. However, I have confirmed that He has donated to Matt Cartwright, which might explain why he isn't running in his own district. He has donated to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Hillary Clinton, Charlie Rangel, and Bob Casey numerous times. He has also been fined $41,000 at his company for 58 infractions of hiring illegal immigrants. So can you guys please tell us tonight, have either of you two donated to any of those candidates that I just mentioned, and have either of you ever hired illegal immigrants to work for you?
Absolutely not.
No, I have not, and I've never donated to any Democrat or progressive cause.
That answer will get us back on schedule.
I've never so short in my life.
Next one I have is Bob Clark.
Rod took my question.
Well, moves further along our schedule. Next one I have is Ken Wonder. Is that Wonder? It looks like it.
Oh yeah, I got that.
Which other parties for infrastructure, but the wall is the safest piece of infrastructure we could have to save our country. Why are they against infrastructure, but they say they want to? I just don't understand.
Can't hear the question.
What was the question?
What was the question?
He was asking about, that the building the wall is a part of infrastructure. So why do the Democrats, who generally support building infrastructure, why would they be against such a thing? And the reason is because Democrat policies don't work. People are catching on, and we are learning this. We understand their policies don't work. So since the Democrats cannot grow new Democrats, they have to import them from other countries. They don't care about those people, really. They are all about power. Now, regarding the cost of the wall, I don't remember the cost of the estimates, but I do know that they've done analysis because illegal immigration costs us so much money each year. I think it's something like after 5 or 6 years, the wall would be paid for in the savings to the American people.
I can't say anything better than what Scott has said from that standpoint, but I also will tell you that some of the new technology that's out there, as far as the use of UAS, of drones, to actually patrol the borders right now, is extremely important while we are looking at the situation as far as building the wall. So again, we can't just wait to say the wall's built. We have to take care of this issue right now. Think about how many less people are coming in right now because they are concerned. Because we have a president right now that when he says something, he means it.
Thank you. We'll take one from the podium, but Kendra's on deck after I ask this one. Past administration has appropriated billions of taxpayer money to Iran and North Korea. Both are now considered nuclear threats to the free world, perhaps bolstered and financed by America. Moving forward, the question is, moving forward, what direction do you envision the President take under the circumstances he was given? The response can include foreign policy in a broader sense, for instance, Syria.
Well, before I even go any further, I really honor the work that this gentleman has done as a CIA officer and also in the military. I had a son-in-law, actually 2 sons-in-law. My one son-in-law worked at the White House military office, flew Seahawk helicopters, but also is now working in the policy and planning for the Chief of Naval Operations right now. My son-in-law said to me one time, again, he used to see what the president was seeing on a daily basis. He would say, I'd say, I know you can't say anything to me, Pete, but what would you say if you could? He said, Dad, when I was running missions in Iraq, in Somalia, it was a scary world from the information I had. Then I saw what the president sees on a daily basis. We only know 1/1000th of what's going on out there. And it is very scary. And So we have to address, security is extremely important for us. We have got to respect those people. I give the president a lot of credit because he's listening to his military. That's why they went to school for that. That's why they go to the war college. That's the reason that they understand that. He is not making decisions alone. He has built that team around him that is really helping him to formulate good policy.
Yeah, it's true, and the president's circle gets even better all the time. It's improving now. He has John Bolton in there, and he has a good record. And I think he's doing a good job. Trump really, people don't even understand how much he's really changed the foreign policy establishment. He is thinking outside of the box all the time, and he's introduced what I call like strategic ambiguity. You just don't know what the guy's going to do, and believe me, that's a good thing for a change. So I really love seeing foreigners saying, what the heck is the United States going to do next? That's a good thing, because for 30 years, we have been the most predictable, plotting superpower that there is. People can play us because they know where we're coming from. Trump has introduced ambiguity again, and it's the reason that we have, our security is better than it has been in about 10 years. But Trump does have a lot of work to do to undo the damage of the Obama administration.
Again, I interject. I was at the leadership conference a few weeks ago. One of the points relative to that is, you remember Bill Clinton giving hundreds of billions of dollars to North Korea and come back with a speech, no nuclear threat in our time? He reminded me of Chamberlain when he came back from Germany. Don't worry, no war in our time. That's true. Bill Clinton's worried over Chamberlain. That's not Will Chamberlain, that's Neville. Anyway, if you think about what's going on here, point being, under Hillary Clinton, hundreds of billions to Iran. Iran has now hundreds of billions, our money, your money. They use that money to buy technology, nuclear and missile technology, from North Korea. Now North Korea has money, our money, hundreds of billions. What did they do with that? They were able to buy fuel from China, our money. Where's China's money? Balance of trade. They get all our money through the imbalance of trade. This whole circle of adversaries is functioning in our dollars. Do you get it? We're in serious trouble. These folks are going to cause deaths for this world. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it causes war, but it won't be Bush, it won't be Trump's fault. It's the last 10 years of ludicrous foreign policy. Enough said. I'm not running, but it gets. Okay, Kevin, sorry, Kendra, Emma is going to give us the next question.
Okay, so my question is actually threefold, and I will try to make it quickly. The Constitution says that Congress can remove certain classes of cases from the Supreme Court, which a bill in Congress that would remove abortion from the federal court and send it back to the state. My second question would be with pro-life regulations in the past years since Roe v. Wade, seeing that that simply regulates baby murder, would you all fight for the abolition of abortion instead of just more pro-life legislation? And my third part of the question is, we know of some folks who are running for office who are working to abolish abortion insurance. With that in mind, if it would come down to a state eliminating abortion or sodomy or things like that, would you respect the state sovereignty in that and leave the federal government out?
Well, if in fact, I'm not as familiar with that clause as you are, but if in fact you're right about, the states have the precedent, then we have to look at that, because, it's the 10th Amendment. Anything that's not reserved for the federal government is automatically for the state. So we need to look at that. And I think that as far as pro-life goes, I think that the policy, what we're doing now, I think is a pretty good policy. The idea of, what we're doing basically what the Democrats do to us all the time, incrementalism, slowly taking it, slowly rolling it back, reducing the amount of, reducing the weeks required for an abortion. This is a good idea because technology, again, is on our side. It reveals more and more about the nature of life. And that, combined with incrementally rolling back the abortion, I think is the way to go. Although again, I would certainly be very welcome to sit down and talk about doing such a thing as well. But the main goal here is to preserve life, always.
Your answer is yes, I would be very, very strong about that. Again, I believe that everything goes back to the life issue, okay? I also look at those couples who would love to have a child and they can't have a child. And in a situation that they can't, to have a beautiful baby that they could adopt. That is so important. I deal with it right now with children and youth issues as a county commissioner. In that when we have a situation where there's a child whose parent has a drug problem and maybe another parent that's incarcerated, what happens to that child? Foster parenting is extremely important in that situation. But the toughest part about it is we have to go out, as far as children and youth, 5 areas to try to find relatives. And that sometimes takes away from that. We need to look at the right thing for the child. I will tell you, when we have problems with situations like that at the county level, I always tell people, first of all, we're praying about it because I need divine guidance. This is the life of the child. Secondly, that remember, I know that you support the child, I know that the other person supports the child, I do. Count to 10 before you say anything. Let's talk about what we're affecting is the life of that child. So they're nothing better than life. God bless you.
Okay, folks, I hope you can hang in there just a little bit longer. We got a couple of questions, and we'll do a wrap. I appreciate your attention and your patience. I'm going to try to get these couple in here yet. Is Vicky here yet? Vicky, back there? Thinking an easy question and an easy answer, I hope.
Yes, I wondered what you do if you're voted into office about trying to get us so we can have voting cards with our pictures on.
Isn't it amazing that you need to have an ID for anything else but for voting? It is absolutely abominable. Again, I'm on our election board in Schuylkill County. However, because I'm running, I have to step back. But the fact of the matter is, when I see people coming in to the voting booth and they say, here, I said, well, there was one election that we were testing, and people were actually saying, why do I have to give you that? Well, let me tell you something. You need your ID for everything else. Why not for voting? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, let's cut right to the chase. It's a way to allow someone on the other side to vote to make it look acceptable. It's not acceptable. We need to have, but also I will tell you, and I appreciate everyone here because I know you're all voters. Nothing worse as a public official when somebody comes up and they're asking me about something and I say, do you vote? And they say, heck no. You gotta be kidding. That is a God-given right that we have. You making the decision on who is in that position. And again, answering to the Almighty being.
Yeah, it's a good question, and there's no question we have to implement such a policy. The Democrats love to, all right, they come out with rationale for why you shouldn't have identification for it, and there continues to be a lot of rumor about massive voter fraud in places like Philadelphia, places throughout Pennsylvania, and of course the country at large. So we've got to do that better. And if that means giving people an ID for the purpose of voting, then that's fine. That's what we've got to do. Because we've got to make sure our republic isn't captured by people who are willing to vote illegally. It's our government. We are the legal residents. We are the voters. And so people should not steal that from us.
Okay. Last question from our house. Richard Palsgrave. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question to ask you. What I want to know is, number one, in yesterday's Reading Eagle paper, are we in Pennsylvania going to allow prayers in our schools? Number two, what I want to know is, why are all the judges are favoring the crooks instead of the victim? I want to know if somebody can answer that.
Wants to know about prayer in school, okay? I mean, first of all, I will tell you, I told you that my son is just a basketball coach at Villanova. Takes after his mother, thank God. But the key is, when you talk about that, I believe in prayer. I believe in prayer in school, okay? I also believe, you know, people from, when we honor a military person at a Villanova basketball game, what do we do right after? We sing God Bless America. We're hoping that that is heard nationally, because you know what? It's about our country, and God is, again, America was based on faith, and that's what we've got to remember as we move forward. Prayer is very important. So.
Right. You're touching on a lot of social issues. These are things that a lot of times, frankly, a lot of politicians are afraid to weigh in on. And this is where I will not be afraid to stand up for what's right. When it comes to upholding, prayer in school, there shouldn't be any problem with that. Why do we feel the need, separation of church and state, we have to expunge the name of God out of every public venue? It's ridiculous. And there aren't enough politicians in Washington who are willing to fight this cultural war, who are willing to stand up and say, that's wrong, and I'm taking a stand against it. And that's something that I will not be afraid to do when I'm in Congress, is to stand up for what's right. Because I know pretty much the way the people in the 9th District think, and you all will be continuing to talk to me. I want to understand more. But we've got to stand up for what's right, and I won't be afraid to do that.
I'm a no candidate here from one of my committee, and if I don't ask this question, I'll be in trouble. It's a takeoff of an earlier comment that I made earlier. Basically, is they're looking at Iran, China, and Russia, and Korea. Do we perceive these folks, they're already at war with us, or planning on war with us? I know there's cyber war, but do we see down the road there's a potential here there's going to be gunfight?
Well, let's talk about China first. People, I've talked to some people in the community, and we all know that tariffs are on the table. President Trump is doing that. He's getting tough with China. And there are some people in the district who are a little concerned about the idea of steel tariffs with China. And they say, oh, well, we don't want Trump to start a trade war. Well, the actual fact is this, folks. We have been in a trade war with China for 30 years, and we can't lose it. That's a fact. Trump is the first person who's willing to stand up and actually see this. I mean, I've been seeing it happen in slow motion my whole life, and I think most of you have too. We've got to put a stop to it. Now, if temporary steel and aluminum tariffs are enacted for a year to get us where we need to be as far as reindustrialization, then you know what? I'm willing to pay that price. Because we've got to bring these jobs back home, if nothing else, in the name of national security. Because they've been beating the stuffing out of us for 30 years, and it's got to stop.
I'm going to make your life easy. I agree with Scott.
Okay. So that I get all the questions in, I'm going to make really brief these questions, and I'm looking for a very brief answer so we can wrap it up, but at least I'd like to get them on the table. Global warming. Is it a farce? Is it legitimate? Is it one of each, some of each? Or is it just Al Gore's concept?
It's that internet concept that Al Gore's talking about that I just can't understand, but no, global warming is not an issue to me.
No, I'm very skeptical of it. The world is warming, but no one has been able to prove it's a result of human activity or industrial activity. All the data has been, a lot of the data was forged at like University of Edinburgh or something, or Glasgow, and yeah, I'm a big skeptic. And remember, there's a lot of money to be made on these alternative energy, and a lot of money being made on people embracing this narrative of global warming. I'm an extreme skeptic.
Okay, another easy question or quick question. If either one of you two are elected, do you have a real hot issue that you want to get on that floor or co-sponsor or get on a committee to get that bill out on the floor? Is there any one particular thing that strikes you as most important?
As far as one issue, immigration reform is what I really want to look at first and foremost, because that's the most important thing of all. It really touches on every one of our other problems, whether it's taxation, problems with education, problems with violence, problems with opioids in Pennsylvania and elsewhere. Most of it can be traced to the lack of a wall and illegal immigration. You build a wall, watch imports of illegal Chinese opiates go down 80%.
I agree with Scott on that, where I think also agriculture, because that's a very important area to this area. Plus also transportation community. Infrastructure is extremely important to us. With the number of roads and bridges that we have, it's getting from point A to point B. That is extremely important. And what the president is doing as far as infrastructure, I think is absolutely phenomenal. It's a start. But again, we all have to work together on that.
Question is, was it time for Ryan to go? And if it was, do you have any idea who would like to see in this place, or what qualifications or qualities you would want to see as Speaker of the House?
As far as being time to go, it's first of all, his decision from that standpoint. I respect the decision that he makes. However, I need to have a good leader in there. I need to have somebody that can bring people together. One of the things I did as county commissioner was, from a Republican standpoint, we had different factions of Republicans that were they were just arguing. And this is a problem that we have. When you have people who have the same principles, who are trying to create chaos in order to make themselves look better, that doesn't do any of us good. When I ran for commissioner, I ran to get professionalism back in. We have to have decorum, we have to have professionalism, all due respect. We have to be like when we sit down at our kitchen table, okay? And that's where the decisions are made, because too many times we go away and, especially when you get to Congress, you have a situation where they are so far away from the constituency, you have to be in touch with your constituency. County commissioners, we deal with people on a day out basis. When you get to the state basis, you're not as close. When you get to the federal basis, you're not. So you need to know your people. You need to have the right people around you to make sure you are listening to everyone and to do the right thing. So I'm looking for great leadership from that standpoint. And I'm also looking for integrity. I want to have honesty and integrity.
In the interest of trying to wrap this up before they turn the lights out, would each of you like to do a 1-minute synopsis of why you really want this job? And we'll call it an evening.
I could almost answer for both of us, and I'm not going to. I'm going to let Scott also answer. Because I care. Because I care about my grandchildren's future. I care about my children's future. I care about every one of your futures. That to me is what it comes down to. It's a matter of family, it's a matter of faith, it's a matter of integrity, it's a matter of doing, as a public servant, what the people of this district need to have to taken to Washington. And again, I respect my opponent here. Is a great person, and again, we probably agree on 99.999% of the items. Thank you.
I think I'm running because, again, I'm tired of what we have been seeing in Washington. We need to return to the grassroots. We need people who are connected to their districts and understand the concerns of the people in their districts. And I want to support the president's policies as long as they continue to be conservative policies, and I think they will, because that is the path to an American rebirth. That's a path to a better life for us and our children, and that's what I am willing to go to Washington to fight for. Thanks.
Well, I'd certainly like to thank Mr. Halkovich and Mr. Erlinger for making this an informative evening. I think we gained a lot from it, and 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So with that, I'll say my job is through tonight, and thank both the 2 candidates. Thank you. I'm turning it over to Sam now.
Thank you, Ron. Folks, a couple quick announcements. I asked them to stay on the stage because once they leave the stage, you're going to want to go to them right away, and you're not going to listen to me. Okay, so I have a couple quick announcements. So, first of all, Linda's project as far as the Berks County Patriots dog, who let out the dog, well, whoever it is, bring a guest. I mean, bring a guest, each of you get a hot dog. Big deal. Also, I have an announcement here. Middle Atlantic Referendum Society has an event in Boyertown, April 28th. Please see Randy, wherever Randy is. Also, next month, May, we're having Commissioner Linelock. He's going to be talking about the future of Berks County Jail, as well as the Heim, and also other county matters. Additionally, there are letters to sign for Harrisburg. Please, if you haven't signed them, go to Ray and Larry's table over there. Also, there's surveys that you were given. Please pass them out or give them to someone, Ray or whoever, at the end. I'm just trying to go through this very quickly. And let's see, the most important thing I'm saying the last, except for Linda's prayer. Folks, Ron Miller, Linda, and myself. I'm going to take a look at this first. Oh, okay. Are your Board of Directors, BCP Board of Directors candidates for the Republican State Committee requesting your support? There's flyers handed out. Please take a look at them and see all the issues that we do support. There's others as well. We certainly would appreciate your vote on May 15th. Let me just see if I have anything else. Going through this quickly. Okay, Linda, you're up. Also next month, by the way, we're going to have the Wall That Heals. Vietnam Veterans Wall. If you never saw that, it's really fantastic. We're going to have someone speak about that here. Okay? Linda, come. So you guys are paid for me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let us going to close the meeting in prayer. We certainly thank all of you that came tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay. Heavenly Father, we pray that everybody gets home safely tonight. Watch over them. Thank you for having the candidates come and speak freely. We all learned something here tonight, I'm sure. God, touch our hearts. The election is coming up. Let us make the right decisions. Our grandchildren depend on it. Thank you and amen.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going, man. Yeah, I gotta be at work up at 3 o'clock. I was hoping earlier.